Hi everyone, and welcome to a rhetorical analysis of a Latina judge's voice, a speech done by Sonia Sotomayor. So you may be wondering, who is Sonia Sotomayor? Well, Sonia is actually the first Latina justice to be chosen to be on the U.S. Supreme Court. Now, this speech was given back in 2002. During the late 20th century and early 21st century, the topic of affirmative action was highly debated, especially in universities. So, in 2002, then Judge Sonia Sotomayor delivered a sincerely inspiring speech titled A Latina Judge's Voice to Latinx students at UC Berkeley Law School. There she was invited to speak at the Raising the Bar Symposium, which is exactly where she presented her speech. In the speech, she discusses her identity and how it has shaped her dreams into reality. Now here is a reading of an excerpt from her speech. Like many other immigrants to this great land, my parents came because of poverty and to attempt to find a secure and better life for themselves and the family that they hoped to have. They largely succeeded. For that, my brother and I are very grateful. The story of that success is what made me and what makes me the Latina that I am. The Latina side of my identity was forged and closely nurtured by my family through our shared experiences and traditions. For me, a very special part of my being Latina is the muchos platos de arroz, gandules, y pernil, rice, beans, and pork, that I have eaten at countless family holidays and special events. My Latina identity also includes, because of my particularly adventurous taste buds, morcilla, pig intestines, patitas de cerdo con garbanzo, pig's feet with beans, and la lengua y orejas de cuchifrito, pig's tongue and ears. I bet the Mexican Americans in this room are thinking that Puerto Ricans have unusual food taste. Some of us, like me, do. Part of my Latina identity is the sound of merengue at all our family parties and the heart-wrenching Spanish love songs that we enjoy. It is a memory of Saturday afternoon at the movies with my aunt and cousins watching Cantinflas, who is not Puerto Rican but who is an icon Spanish comedian on par with Abbott and Costello of my generation. My Latina soul was nourished as I visited and played at my grandmother's house with my cousins and extended family. Now, does any of these things make me a Latina? Obviously not, because each of our Caribbean and Latin American communities has their own unique food and different traditions at the holidays. I only learned about tacos in college from my Mexican American roommate. Being a Latina in America also does not mean speaking Spanish. I happen to speak it fairly well, but my brother, only 3 years younger, like too many of us educated here, barely speaks it. Most of us born and bred here speak it very poorly. If I had pursued my career in my undergraduate history major, I would likely provide you with a very academic description of what being a Latino or Latina means. For example, I could find Latinos as those peoples and cultures populated or colonized by Spain who maintained or adopted Spanish or Spanish Creole as their language of communication. You can tell that I have been very well educated. That antiseptic description, however, does not really explain the appeal of morcilla, pig's intestine, to an American-born child. It does not provide an adequate explanation of why individuals like us, many of whom are born in this completely different American culture, still identify so strongly with those communities in which our parents were born and raised. America has a deeply confused image of itself that is in perpetual tension. We are a nation that takes pride in our ethnic diversity, recognizing its importance in shaping our society and in adding richness to its existence. Yet we simultaneously insist that we can and must function and live in a race and color-blind way that ignores these very differences that in other contexts we laud. That tension between the melting pot and the salad bowl, a recently popular metaphor used to describe New York's diversity, is being hotly debated today in national discussions about affirmative action. Many of us struggle with this tension and attempt to maintain and promote our cultural and ethnic identities in a society that is often ambivalent about how to deal with its differences. In this time of great debate, we must remember that it is not political struggles that create a Latino or Latina identity. I became a Latina by the way I love and the way I live my life. My family showed me how vibrant life is and how wonderful and magical it is to have a Latina soul. They taught me to love being a Puerto Riqueña and to love America and value its lesson that great things could be achieved if one works hard for it. But achieving success here is no easy accomplishment for Latinos or Latinas, and although that struggle did not and does not create a Latina identity, it does inspire how I live my life. Now, what are the rhetorical strategies that Sotomayor uses to effectively get her message across? Well, in this speech, she uses cultural diction, reflective syntax, and earnest rhetorical devices to convince the audience of the factors that influence identity and success in the Latinx community that should be re-evaluated. Now, throughout the speech, Sotomayor uses specific diction to establish a connection with the audience. In the beginning of the speech, she uses colloquial diction when describing the different cultural customs she possesses as a Latina. Instead of initially describing her favorite dishes in English, she refers to them by their Spanish name. She recounts eating muchos platos de arroz, gandules y pernil instead of simply rice, beans, and pork. Using the native language of the students in the audience relays a sense of familiarity to them who have a similar background. This allows for the audience to begin to trust what the speaker is saying. In addition, Sotomayor uses metaphorical language when describing the U.S. as a tension between the melting pot and the salad bowl. She uses this figurative language to illustrate the demographics of the nation, to convey the challenges faced by Latinos to decipher whether to hide or express their identity in a society that only seems to favor that identity if it's in their own best interest. By presenting this metaphor, she encourages the audience to use that struggle as a tool to remember where they came from. Sotomayor's exquisite manipulation of diction ties in the audience to view her story as their own. Sotomayor also uses elaborate syntax that poses questions and new thoughts to the traditional views of the audience. After explaining her customs in her culture that take part in her everyday life, she straightforwardly asks, "Now, does any of these things make me a Latina?" By posing this question, it prompts the audience to question what exactly makes up one's identity. She places this question in a pivotal place because the audience now contemplates if the factors in the previous paragraph do not make her Latina, then what does? Then in the end of the essay, she uses a complex sentence that answers her own identity question. She presents this sentence by presenting what the challenges of being Latina mean, and then commentating that those struggles don't define a person, rather it should inspire one's life. By using this type of sentence, the speaker is able to explain the complexity of what does and doesn't impact identity. Sotomayor's choice of syntax effectively communicates to the audience her point of view on identity. In order to tie the essay all together, Sotomayor uses vivid rhetorical devices to ignite a spark in the audience. The speaker uses an allusion to the movies of Cantinflas when reminiscing on her childhood. She uses this allusion to connect with the audience on a cultural level. This allows the audience to relate their own experiences to the speaker, which in turn permits them to envision sharing her same success. Later on, Sotomayor uses pathos in order to explicitly connect with the audience experiences being a minority in the country. She explains how the technical definitions of identity in an educational setting do not explain the appeal of morcilla, pig's intestine, to an American-born child. By saying these words, the audience can automatically think back to a time when someone couldn't understand their culture because it was too different. This convinces the audience to freely express their identity and live their cultural values in their everyday lives despite what society may think of those values. Now, Sotomayor, all in all, uses all of these effective rhetorical strategies of colloquial diction, metaphorical language, a rhetorical question, a complex sentence, an allusion, and pathos to get her message of identity across and successfully inspire a room of young Latinx students to pursue their own dreams and aspirations. Thank you.